JMU fans, it is time to talk about the tight end position. But before we do that, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It means a lot to us to get likes and subscriptions. One, because we just love the engagement and the endorphin rush. And two, it helps us secure future sponsorships, advertisers, things that allow us to make more videos like this, have more written content, like you'll see at jmusportsnews.com. So every like and subscription on the YouTube channel helps us out a ton. All right, let's talk about the tight end position. It was a position under Curt Cignetti that Dukes did not use a lot in the passing game. They certainly used it in the blocking game. Zack Horton, one of the best blocking tight ends in the country. He's on his way with Cignetti to Indiana. And he did have some nice receiving performances last year as well. He was a first-team All-Sun Belt player because he was an elite blocker, but he also went over 200 yards receiving and had 6 touchdown catches, including a couple in a win over South Alabama where he really shined. So Zack Horton's a really solid player. The Dukes are going to miss him. But they do have some guys in the tight end room who are a little bit different, but I think they're going to fit what Dean Kennedy, the offensive coordinator, and Bob Chesney, the head coach, are looking for out of the position. They've got Taylor Thompson, Logan Kyle, and then Kai Wright. Kai Wright is a former Pitt transfer, played for the Dukes last year. He's more of a blocking tight end at 260 pounds, can certainly catch the ball, but I would say his strengths are in blocking for sure. Now, Taylor Thompson and Logan Kyle have a lot of receiving ability. They're both about like 235 pounds, 6'3", 6'4". Logan Kyle comes to JMU from Vanderbilt. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. Taylor Thompson was in the program last year, but did not have any catches, which was a surprise to me. He came from Charlotte, where he was one of the better tight ends, I think, receiving tight ends in the group of 5. He was a 2020 Conference USA All-Freshman team member, went over 200 plus yards his final year at Charlotte in 2022. So he was a quality receiver, does a ton of damage over the middle of the field, runs really clean routes. He's got a couple of nice one-handed catches during his time at Charlotte. Just a really good player who can get open over the middle of the field, especially if you have a defense that is overcommitted to certain receivers or the running game. And I think in JMU's case, the strengths of the offense are probably going to be some of those skill guys where you look at Iowa Day in the backfield, the North Texas transfer. You've got Cam Ross at receiver, Taji Hudson, Brionne Penny. Those guys are going to get a lot of targets. And I think defenses, especially as the season goes on, are going to pay more attention to them than some of these tight ends, creating some openings over the middle of the field for Thompson and Kyle. Kyle's particularly interesting coming from Vanderbilt, where they actually gave him some jet sweeps, right? They were giving him the ball in the run game, and he was very productive doing that. He was a 200-meter champion, district champion in high school from Texas. So he's got really good speed, unusual speed for a tight end. He almost just looks like a bigger receiver and certainly gives off that vibe. And Thompson does a little bit as well, although they're big enough to block and get in there in the run game as well. But Logan Kyle played 30 games for an SEC program. He's got 2 years left. Speedster, really athletic guy, right? I've seen so many people mentioning how fast he is in the new NCAA 25 video game. He's fast in real life too. You turn on his tape, he's got really good speed. Taylor Thompson has really good hands and is a solid route runner. Those two have a chance to break out and have a huge season catching the ball. And I think that's going to be a positive for this JMU offense. JMU's best offense under Curt Cignetti averaged 40 points per game in 2019. That, perhaps coincidentally, was the best year for receiving tight end action for the Dukes in the Cignetti era. Dylan Stapleton had 35 catches for over 400 yards in 2019. That was the most production in the receiving game for a JMU tight end when Cignetti was the head coach. Also the most explosive in terms of scoring offense the Dukes had under Cignetti. And I think that makes sense. They had multiple options at receiver. They had multiple options at running back that year. They had an efficient quarterback, but it helped to have a tight end who could make plays and they could go to when needed. Bob Chesney has shown a willingness to go to tight ends in the past. Not every year, it depends on his personnel, but he's going to have an offense that plays to his team's strengths. At Assumption in 2013, they had a player named Scott Simonson who had 39 catches for 604 yards and 5 touchdowns. He actually led the team in every category: receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. So Simonson, 2013, it's been over a decade, but clearly Chesney saw something on his team that the tight end position was a strength that year. They leaned on it. He did that as well at Salve Regina when he was there. He had a player named Patrick Keenan, who in 2010 had over 200 receiving yards, just under 300, 295 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was a big-bodied receiver that year. They moved him to tight end in 2011, where he had, again, very similar stats, 24 catches, 267 yards, and a pair of touchdowns. Important part of their passing game that year, both years. So he's used tight ends in the past. More recently, in 2019 at Holy Cross, Derek Mountain had 413 receiving yards, which was second on the team. So they're willing to use tight ends. That's a couple years you can see in his history that he's had tight ends go over 400 receiving yards. Signetti had it once during his JMU tenure. I'm not saying Thompson or Kyle are necessarily going over 400 yards this year, but I do think the tight end position is going to be a much bigger factor in the passing game for JMU this fall because Thompson and Kyle simply deserve to be on the field and deserve to get some reps. They're good enough, fast enough. I think they create mismatches at the linebacker level, at the secondary level. I think they'll be used. I think they're going to be an asset to the Dukes in the fall.